The atmosphere on the set of Today with Jenna Friends was bright and cheerful as cameras rolled, but beneath the polished smiles, tension quietly simmered. Scarlett Johansson arrived to promote her latest project, greeting the hosts and audience with her trademark poise. At first glance, everything appeared normal, yet insiders later revealed that pre-show discussions had already sparked discomfort. Certain topics Johansson reportedly asked to avoid were still lingering in the show's rundown, setting the stage for what would soon become an unexpectedly dramatic moment. Jenna Bush Hager opened the segment warmly, praising Johansson's career and versatility, drawing applause from the studio audience. Scarlett smiled and responded graciously, but her body language suggested restraint rather than ease. As the conversation flowed, subtle shifts in tone emerged. Questions began drifting away from the agreed promotional focus, touching instead on personal choices and past headlines. While Johansson answered politely, her responses grew shorter, signaling unease that attentive viewers could sense even through the screen. The first noticeable spark came when a comment was framed as lighthearted but landed with an edge. Johansson paused before replying, choosing her words carefully. The audience laughed, yet the laughter felt thinner than before. According to people present, Scarlett glanced briefly toward the producer's area, as if checking whether the conversation would be redirected. Instead, that discussion continued down a path she appeared increasingly uncomfortable navigating in a public, live format. As minutes passed, the contrast between the show's upbeat tone and Johansson's guarded demeanor became more pronounced. Jenna attempted to keep things friendly, but follow-up questions pressed deeper. Scarlett maintained professionalism, though her posture stiffened and her expressions tightened. Viewers later described the exchange as awkward rather than entertaining, noting how the energy in the room shifted from playful morning television to something far more tense and uncertain. The heated clash reportedly ignited when a question touched on Johansson's private life, framed as a topic fans were curious about. Scarlett stopped smiling altogether. She calmly but firmly stated that some subjects deserved privacy, especially in spaces meant to celebrate work rather than personal speculation. The statement drew scattered applause, but it also created a palpable pause that disrupted the show's rhythm. Jenna responded by attempting to soften the moment, suggesting the curiosity came from admiration. Yet Johansson appeared unconvinced. Her reply emphasized boundaries and respect, delivered without raised voice but with unmistakable clarity. The contrast between the show's lighthearted format and the seriousness of Johansson's words made the moment feel heavier than typical daytime television exchanges. Behind the scenes, producers were reportedly signaling to wrap the topic and pivot. However, a final remark, perhaps intended as reassurance, struck Johansson as dismissive. Her expression hardened, and she leaned forward, reiterating that certain narratives are often imposed on women in the industry under the guise of friendliness. The audience grew quiet, sensing they were witnessing something unscripted and deeply personal. Johansson's frustration, according to insiders, wasn't about a single question but a pattern she felt had resurfaced despite prior agreements. She spoke about how frequently female actors are expected to share more than their male counterparts. Though measured, her words carried weight, turning the segment into a broader commentary on media expectations rather than a promotional interview. Jenna listened attentively, nodding, but the tension lingered. The attempt to transition back to safer topics felt forced. Scarlett's responses remained polite but distant, as though a line had already been crossed. Viewers at home noticed the shift, flooding social media with comments about the sudden change in tone. The turning point came when Johansson visibly took a breath, glanced at the hosts, and stated that she didn't feel comfortable continuing the conversation in its current direction. She thanked the audience for their support and acknowledged the platform, but her tone suggested finality. Gasps rippled through the studio as the realization set in that she was preparing to leave. Scarlett stood up calmly, adjusting her jacket, her movements deliberate rather than impulsive. Jenna appeared surprised, attempting to speak, but Johansson gently raised a hand, signaling she needed to step away. The moment was striking in its restraint. There was no shouting, no dramatic gestures, just a quiet assertion of control that contrasted sharply with the show's usual energy. Cameras quickly cut to water shots as producers scrambled to manage the unexpected development. Applause broke out, mixed with murmurs of confusion. Johansson offered a brief smile to the audience, thanking them again before walking off the set. The band hesitated, unsure whether to play, underscoring how unplanned the moment truly was. The show cut to commercial earlier than scheduled, leaving viewers stunned. Social media immediately lit up with clips and speculation, with headlines framing the incident as Scarlett Johansson storming off after a heated clash. Within minutes, the moment was trending, dissected frame by fans and critics alike. Backstage, sources claimed Johansson remained composed, speaking briefly with producers before exiting the studio. Those close to her emphasized that the decision wasn't impulsive but rooted in long-standing frustration with boundaries being overlooked. The phase stormed off, they argued, misrepresented what was actually a calm but firm departure. When the broadcast returned, Jenna addressed the audience with a brief statement, acknowledging the unexpected turn and emphasizing respect for Johansson. The explanation was vague, offering little clarity, which only fueled further speculation. Viewers were left to interpret the incident based on limited information and viral clips. Entertainment outlets quickly picked up the story, each offering different interpretations. Some framed Johansson as standing up for herself, while others questioned whether the reaction was disproportionate. The lack of an immediate statement from Johansson allowed narratives to multiply, turning a single moment into a broader debate about celebrity interviews. Fans rallied online, praising Scarlett for asserting boundaries and calling out what they saw as subtle intrusions disguised as friendliness. Many shared similar experiences, noting how women are often expected to be open and accommodating regardless of comfort. The incident resonated beyond celebrity gossip, tapping into wider cultural conversations. Critics, however, argued that daytime talk shows thrive on personal connection and that Johansson should have anticipated the tone. This divide highlighted differing expectations between guests and hosts, especially when personal curiosity intersects with professional promotion. Media analysts pointed out that such clashes often stem from miscommunication rather than malice. Agreements made behind the scenes don't always translate smoothly on live television. When expectations collide publicly, even small missteps can escalate into defining moments. Johansson's long career added complexity to the reaction. As one of Hollywood's most recognized faces, her actions carry symbolic weight. Supporters viewed her walk-off as empowerment, while skeptics questioned whether it set a challenging precedent for talk show dynamics. The Today with Jenna Friends team reportedly reviewed the segment internally, assessing how the conversation veered off course. Insiders suggested the incident would likely influence future guest preparations, with clearer boundaries and contingency plans. Over the following days, Johansson avoided directly addressing the moment, focusing instead on her work. That silence allowed the story to evolve on its own, shaped by commentators and fans projecting their own values onto the event. Cultural commentators noted how the incident reflected shifting norms in media. Audiences increasingly expect respect and authenticity, even at the cost of polished entertainment. Johansson's exit, while disruptive, felt honest to many viewers. Comparisons were drawn to other celebrity walk-offs, but Scarlett stood apart due to its calm execution. There was no spectacle, only a clear message delivered through action rather than argument. As the buzz continued, some viewers revisited the clip, noticing subtleties missed in real time. The pauses, the careful wording, and the restrained tone suggested a build-up rather than a sudden eruption, reinforcing the idea that the clash was rooted in deeper frustration. The incident became a reference point in discussions about interview ethics and gender dynamics in media. Panels and podcasts debated whether hosts should adapt more to guest comfort or whether guests should adapt to the show's format. Despite the controversy, Johansson's career momentum remained unaffected. Upcoming projects continued to generate excitement, and supporters argued the incident only reinforced her reputation for integrity. For the show, The moment served as a reminder of the unpredictability of live television. Even well-meaning conversations can veer into uncomfortable territory when expectations misalign. Over time, the headlines softened, replaced by newer stories, yet the clip resurfaced whenever conversations about celebrity boundaries emerged. Its longevity lay not in drama, but in the questions it raised. In the end, Scarlett Johansson's departure from Today with Jenna Friends was less about the single-heated clash and more about asserting agency in a public space. The moment stripped away morning show gloss, revealing a candid exchange that left audiences reflecting on respect, communication, and the evolving rules of celebrity interviews. In the days following the broadcast, media outlets continued to replay the moment, slowing it down and examining every glance and pause. Commentators debated whether Johansson's calm demeanor actually made the situation more powerful. Unlike explosive arguments, her quiet firmness forced viewers to lean in and listen. That restraint became a focal point, with many arguing it reflected a shift in how public figures handle uncomfortable situations without feeding into spectacle. Several insiders familiar with daytime television explained that the genre often walks a fine line between warmth and intrusion. Hosts are encouraged to appear relatable, which sometimes leads to questions that blur personal boundaries. Johansson's reaction exposed how easily that line can be crossed, especially when a guest expects a promotional conversation and instead feels guided toward personal territory under the guise of friendly curiosity. Audience members who attended the taping later shared that the room felt unusually still after Johansson stood up. The typical buzz of a live studio vanished, replaced by a sense that something meaningful had occurred. Many described it not as anger, but as clarity, a moment where someone calmly chose self-respect over obligation, even in front of cameras and applause cues. Online discussions expanded beyond the incident itself, touching on how women in Hollywood are often expected to smile through discomfort. Johansson's refusal to do so resonated with viewers who felt represented by her decision. The moment became symbolic, not because of raised voices, but because of what it quietly challenged about expectations placed on public figures. Meanwhile, defenders of the show argued that live television leaves little room for correction once a question is asked. They suggested the clash was an unfortunate collision of intentions rather than disrespect. Still, even some supporters admitted the moment highlighted the need for clearer communication between guests and producers before stepping onto a live set. Johansson's choice to walk away rather than argue also shifted how the term "stormed off" was perceived. Many viewers questioned whether that phrase accurately described what they saw. Instead of chaos, they saw composure. This contrast fueled criticism of sensational headlines, reminding audiences how language can distort reality for the sake of clicks. Entertainment journalists noted that Johansson's silence afterward was strategic. By not issuing an immediate statement, she avoided escalating the narrative. The absence of explanation allowed the footage to speak for itself, inviting interpretation rather than confrontation. In an era of instant reactions, that restraint felt deliberate and rare. The show's producers reportedly held internal meetings to discuss how to prevent similar moments in the future. While no official changes were announced, insiders hinted at more detailed pre-interview discussions becoming standard practice. The incident quietly influenced behind-the-scenes protocols, even if publicly it was treated as an isolated moment. Fans revisiting Johansson's past interviews began noticing a pattern of carefully drawn boundaries. What seemed abrupt to some now appeared consistent with a long-standing stance on privacy. This reframing softened criticism, positioning the walk-off as an extension of values she had expressed for years rather than a sudden reaction. Cultural analysts pointed out that the moment arrived during a broader shift in media consumption. Audiences increasingly value authenticity over polish, even when authenticity creates discomfort. Johansson's exit disrupted the smooth flow of morning television, but it also delivered a rare sense of honesty that many viewers found refreshing. Over time, The incident was referenced less as a scandal and more as a case study. Journalism courses and media panels cited it when discussing interview ethics and power dynamics. Its educational afterlife ensured that the moment would outlast its original news cycle. Some fans speculated whether Johansson would ever return to the show. While no plans were announced, many believed that time and private conversations could soften tensions. In entertainment, rifts often fade quietly, replaced by new collaborations once lessons are learned and boundaries respected. The broader takeaway, according to commentators, was that live television is as much about listening as it is about speaking. Johansson's reaction highlighted what happens when listening falls short. Her decision to leave reframed the moment from conflict to commentary, turning an awkward exchange into a meaningful pause. As newer stories dominated headlines, the clip continued circulating, resurfacing whenever discussions about celebrity autonomy emerged. Its staying power lay not in drama, but in relatability. Viewers saw in Johansson's choice a reflection of moments when they themselves wished they could step away with the same calm confidence. Ultimately, the extra chapters written around the incident reinforced its significance. Scarlett Johansson's departure wasn't just a fleeting television mishap, it became a conversation about respect, boundaries, and evolving media culture. Long after the set lights dimmed, that conversation continued, echoing in how audiences and creators rethink what truly belongs on live television. Weeks after the incident, media commentators revisited the segment to analyze Johansson's responses line by line. Every pause, gesture, and expression was scrutinized, leading some to conclude that her measured calm had amplified the impact of her stance. Unlike volatile exits that grab headlines for anger, her restraint became a lesson in communicating dissatisfaction without losing composure, inspiring discussions about professionalism in high-pressure environments. Fans created online threads debating the underlying causes of the clash. Many suggested that repeated probing about private matters, despite prior agreements, triggered Johansson's decision. This perspective framed her exit as not only reasonable but necessary to maintain personal boundaries, sparking broader conversations about how public figures are treated in media interviews, especially women in Hollywood. Behind the scenes, producers reportedly acknowledged missteps in managing the segment. They realized that balancing audience curiosity with guest comfort is delicate and that even minor oversights can escalate. Future interviews on the show were said to include more structured guidelines and pre-interview confirmations to avoid similar situations, showing that Johansson's departure had immediate practical consequences. Analysts noted that Johansson's approach contrasted sharply with traditional celebrity responses, which often include humor, deflection, or compliance. By leaving calmly, she reframed the power dynamic, demonstrating that choosing not to engage can carry as much weight as verbal confrontation. This subtle form of assertion resonated with viewers and added nuance to discussions about agency in live television. Social media trends exploded in the aftermath, with viewers expressing admiration for Johansson's courage. Hashtags praising her decisiveness circulated alongside clips of the exit. The moment became a cultural touchpoint, symbolizing the importance of self-respect and control over one's narrative, even in high-visibility settings. Cultural critics pointed out that the clash reflected evolving expectations of celebrity conduct. The public now values authenticity and boundary setting, and Johansson's behavior highlighted how old-school interview etiquette is being redefined. Audiences increasingly expect honesty, even if it comes at the expense of conventional politeness or staged interactions. Entertainment lawyers discussed the implications for guest contracts and media appearances. Johansson's walk-off underscored the need for clear agreements about off-limits topics. These professional takeaways were highlighted in industry circles as examples of how public moments can influence legal and procedural standards in media production. Viewers also noticed the emotional intelligence displayed during the segment. Johansson's ability to remain composed while asserting her limits illustrated a mastery of communication under scrutiny. Her calm demeanor turned a potentially explosive situation into a teachable example, demonstrating the impact of measured responses over impulsive reactions. Over time, The incident became part of a larger dialogue about gender dynamics in media interviews. Johansson's refusal to answer personal questions resonated with female audiences who face similar pressures, turning a single television moment into a broader discussion about respect, consent, and agency in public spaces. Pop culture commentators compared the moment to other high-profile walk-offs but emphasized the difference. Johansson's exit was silent, dignified, and deliberate. Its subtlety elevated the incident from sensationalism to cultural commentary, proving that restraint can sometimes create a more powerful impression than overt drama. The Today with Jenna Friends team reportedly used the incident as a training tool, highlighting the importance of communication and audience management. Staff were encouraged to anticipate guest sensitivities, and the episode became a case study in managing live television unpredictability, showing the long-term operational impact of the event. For Johansson, the incident added to her public persona as someone who values privacy and professionalism over performative appearances. Her career continued to thrive, and supporters praised her for modeling boundary setting in a high-stakes environment, reinforcing her reputation as a thoughtful and deliberate figure in Hollywood. Fans revisiting the clip months later observed subtle cues they initially missed, such as her controlled gestures and eye contact, which underscored her deliberate choices. These details shifted perception from storming off to assertive withdrawal, refining how audiences interpreted the incident and contributing to its long-lasting cultural resonance. Media outlets analyzing the story emphasize that headlines often mischaracterize events to maximize engagement. The stormed-off narrative simplified a layered interaction, highlighting how media framing shapes public perception. Johansson's calm exit challenged these narratives, revealing a disconnect between coverage and reality. Ultimately, Scarlett Johansson's departure from Today with Jenna Friends served as more than a moment of conflict. It became a lesson in agency, composure, and media awareness. It demonstrated the importance of respecting boundaries, maintaining professionalism, and communicating clearly, leaving a lasting imprint on both viewers and the entertainment industry. As the dust settled, some began to view Johansson's exit as part of a larger movement of celebrities reclaiming control over their public narratives. In an era where privacy is increasingly invaded, her choice to walk away was seen as an act of self-preservation, an acknowledgement that personal boundaries, especially for women, should not be compromised for the sake of entertainment. This perspective turned her departure into a symbol of empowerment for those who have long been under the microscope. The incident also sparked an important conversation about the evolving role of talk shows in celebrity culture. Where once celebrities were expected to entertain with anecdotes and personal revelations, there is now a growing expectation that they have the right to refuse certain lines of questioning. This shift reflects a larger societal change, where privacy and respect for boundaries are being prioritized over sensationalism and controversy. Media professionals began to dissect the dynamics between talk show hosts and their guests, questioning the ethics of probing into personal matters for entertainment value. Johansson's calm but firm exit was positioned as a turning point, highlighting how the pressure on celebrities to overshare has reached its limit. Her exit wasn't just about one uncomfortable question, it was a rejection of the larger cultural expectation that celebrities owe the public access to their private lives. While some fans applauded Johansson for her bravery, others were divided. Critics argued that celebrities, especially those with public platforms, should expect to answer difficult questions as part of their responsibility to engage with their audience. However, those in support of Johansson's actions emphasized that the show's producers and hosts should have respected her boundaries from the beginning, suggesting that her departure wasn't just justified, it was necessary to address a deeper issue in media culture. The fact that Johansson's walk-off was calm, rather than fueled by anger, set it apart from many other dramatic celebrity exits. This composed exit turned the event from a scandal into a conversation about how people, both famous and non-famous, should manage their boundaries. Her ability to leave without shouting or creating further conflict became a point of admiration for many who believe in the power of restraint over explosive reactions. The topic of celebrity treatment gained significant traction after Johansson's exit. Public discussions about the way female celebrities are often expected to perform in interviews, whether by discussing their relationships, personal lives, or body as a grew louder. Johansson's walk-off acted as a wake-up call for media outlets and audiences alike, forcing everyone to confront the uncomfortable truth about how invasive and controlling the entertainment industry can be. Entertainment law experts weighed in, suggesting that this incident could spark a wider reevaluation of guest contracts for talk shows and other live television formats. The need for clear boundaries to protect both the emotional well-being and privacy of celebrities became a key talking point. It was widely speculated that other high-profile guests would now be more proactive in setting their own terms before appearing on talk shows. On social media, the response was overwhelmingly supportive of Johansson. Fans across platforms shared stories of their own experiences with boundary-pushing questions in their personal lives, using Johansson's action as a moment to reflect on their own struggles with asserting personal limits. The walk-off was embraced as a collective victory for anyone who has ever felt pressured to overshare or accept discomfort for the sake of public consumption. On the other hand, the incident also brought forward the challenges celebrities face in terms of managing public perceptions. While Johansson's actions were seen by many as a rightful stand for privacy, some noted the difficulty of being in the public eye and trying to balance personal integrity with the demands of fame. The clash between public expectation and personal boundary setting is something many celebrities struggle with, often leading to backlash or misunderstandings. In the aftermath, the controversy sparked discussions about celebrity mental health. Johansson's walk-off underscored the toll that public scrutiny and constant questioning can take on a person, even for those who are used to the limelight. The mental and emotional cost of being constantly in the public eye is often overlooked, but this incident made it impossible to ignore. For many viewers, Johansson's decision to leave became a metaphor for self-care in an industry that thrives on exploiting personal vulnerability. The day after the incident, various publications published think pieces on the nature of celebrity interviews. Many pointed out that while late-night talk shows and morning programs often feature light-hearted exchanges, the increasing intensity of questions about personal lives may be pushing boundaries in a way that is no longer acceptable. Johansson's walk-off was seen as a sign of a growing resistance to the exploitation of personal stories for entertainment purposes. Some questioned whether this marked the beginning of a broader trend where celebrities, particularly women, will feel empowered to set more stringent limits on the kinds of questions they will answer. Johansson's actions suggested that the days of being compelled to discuss one's private life for the sake of promotion were over. The incident became a point of reference in discussions about media ethics and the treatment of public figures. As a result of this incident, there was a marked shift in how certain celebrity interviews were conducted in the months that followed. Talk show hosts and producers were reported to have become more cautious in their approach, respecting boundaries more clearly and offering guests more control over what they were willing to discuss. The Johansson incident was being cited as a case study in how not to handle celebrity interviews. Public opinion shifted as the story lingered in the media, and many began to see Johansson's exit as an act of self-respect rather than an overreaction. Rather than the expected controversy, it became a quiet revolution in how people view celebrity autonomy. Johansson's departure was viewed as a moment where a celebrity finally pushed back against the machine that often reduces them to mere content for public consumption. In the long run, Johansson's walk-off episode became a defining moment in her career, not for the controversy it generated, but for the statement it made about control and respect. She had said enough with her actions, challenging both her audience and the media to reconsider how we treat those we place on pedestals. The clash, while uncomfortable, ended up being one of the most defining moments of her career, shaping her legacy as a figure who valued her integrity over her public image. Finally, the incident was quietly referenced in years to come as a turning point in the broader entertainment landscape. Johansson's exit had shifted the conversation about the rights of celebrities, particularly women, to have their own boundaries. What started as a controversial moment evolved into a lasting lesson on the importance of respect, autonomy, and the shifting expectations of what it means to be a celebrity in a modern, hyper-connected world.